What a great conference. I came in just a little bit after the panel had started their discussion, and it was so on point and connected to what everyone was saying. Each person's perspective, I think, was both important individually, but it all formed a nice tapestry of subjects and thoughts that really fit well with the theme of this conference. And I also want to send kudos to the UMass dining services. Yeah, give me a hand. If you have not eaten here before, this was particularly good, but the students are eating this way now as well. And if you didn't know it, UMass has won national awards and recognitions in the last few years for transforming its dining services from the sort of traditional, corporate type of approach to buying way more local food, using innovative recipes, trying to source as much as possible in Massachusetts and locally. And they deserve a lot of credit. They've been getting it around the country, and they're hopefully setting the standard for more institutional food services around the state and the country. So they deserve a lot of credit. In fact, I was in Montague in my district on Monday at a farm which grows Chinese vegetables exclusively, about 15 or 16 different varieties. And UMass is a big customer of theirs. UMass buys cartons of bok choy every week, which is terrific. So they're contributing to the local economy and helping to sustain our agriculture and our open space right in our own backyard. So that's great. So I was asked to come today and sort of set the stage for your going on to workshops. And they all look great, and they very well tie into how can you be more effective advocates, how can you be more effective as lobbyists and collaborators with each other. When I looked at the list of attendees today, I was struck by how many different fields you all come from, but that you all work on similar issues. And I think that was evident in the remarks by the panel earlier. And in particular, one of the things that was said, my good friend Claire Higgins talked about how the state and local level is really where things are happening now. We can't look to Washington to solve our problems. They can't even figure out how to lock the front door of the White House. Not a funny topic, but you watch Congress and it is dysfunctional to the nth degree. Fortunately, in Massachusetts, we have, I think, a very productive legislature, a good relationship with the current executive, Governor Patrick, and we've done a lot in recent years to move the ball forward in empowering communities, reforming various functions of state government, and so forth. And that applies to whether you're from a rural or an urban area. I happen to represent 19 towns in a rural district in Franklin and Hampshire counties. And the kinds of service, delivery service challenges that we have are a little bit different from what happens in urban areas, but they're similar by the same token. We have transportation, access to jobs, access to education, and so forth, which in a low population density rural area can be very, very challenging to deliver services in an effective way. So for those of us who represent rural areas, and I'll even broaden that out a little more to talk about those of us who represent Western Mass, we've learned that we need to work together as legislators, House and Senate members. And I think that's part of what this conference is all about. How can you work more effectively with each other to create clear agendas and to express them to the right people? I know that Amanda Navarro earlier talked about who leads and who decides. And that's a critical question. And I would offer the belief that all of you in your work every day are empowered to lead and empowered to decide. And you're empowered to help us, as your elected representatives, to lead and decide on your behalf. I looked at the comments that many of you had made prior to coming here and what you expect to get out of this and this conference. And a lot of it was, how can I be a more effective advocate with legislators, local officials, and so on. And I wanted to let you know that it's really not all that hard. Those of us who seek elective office I think largely do so because we like working with people, we like solving problems, we like getting results. But we can't do them in a vacuum. We need the input of folks like you in the fields that you work in. And a lot of what we do is focused on legislation, but also the state budget. And I know that affects probably nearly everyone in this room in one way or another. You may get a grant from the Commonwealth, you may be a sub-vendor or something to deliver services on behalf of the Commonwealth. And therefore, your advocacy during the budget process is very important. And so I thought I might try to demystify that just a little bit. You probably know that it is the focal point of most of each year in the two-year legislative cycle. And the budget process actually for the next session will begin in December when we have what's called the consensus revenue hearing. And we decide how much money, based on economic projections, the Commonwealth is likely to have in the next fiscal year. In January, the House, the Senate, and the Governor's administration all decide on a number. And that's what we agree we're all going to base our budget figure on, our revenue figures. Then the Governor files a budget in January, comes to the House first, comes to the House Ways and Means Committee. We begin dissecting that budget, analyzing every line item, every program, and having public hearings around the Commonwealth. We usually have 10 and different subjects: transportation, the environment, public health, human services, and so on. In fact, usually we have one right here in this room where we bring the Ways and Means Committee out to Western Massachusetts. The result of all of that process is that in April, the House offers a budget proposal for its consideration of its members. And we debate it. We offer amendments individually. The members spend about a week going through the budget and offering changes. It does change from the beginning of the week to the end of the week. And then it's voted on, and then it's the Senate's turn. And they usually take it up in May. So it's a process that goes again from December to May when you have a House version and a Senate version of the budget. And then it goes to a 6-member conference committee of 3 senators and 3 representatives. And that's where the really interesting work happens, because usually each of them may exceed a little bit what we actually have to spend. So you need to scale it back, make compromises, make trades. One thing that might be a priority for the Senate may not be for the House, and vice versa. And then if all goes well, by the end of June, near the beginning of the new fiscal year, July 1st, we will have a consensus budget proposal, a conference report is what it's called, that goes before the full membership of the House and Senate. Now, all along that path, and it really begins in December, advocates come and talk with folks like me. They talk with all the legislators, but particularly those who sit on Ways and Means. Ellen's door is knocked on frequently, as is mine, and people want to come and tell us what their budget priorities are, their budget asks, if you will, or what we generally refer to them as. And these asks we take very seriously. They are not, we know if you're taking the time to come and talk with us about something that's important to you and the people you serve in your communities and your agencies, then we should pay attention to it. And we do. And the kinds of information we're looking for that I think is most important, and this is what Risa had asked me to sort of talk about, is to weave it into the data that's been discussed earlier and is the subject of one of the workshops. How important is data in lobbying for or advocating for budget priorities? And I have to say it's very important, but it's probably equal or even just a little underneath the importance of real life stories of people who are receiving services, either receiving them well or not well enough. And that blend of data, results, and human stories about the impacts of state policies and spending are what really connect with us. It's what we use when we debate the budget. It's what we use when we make decisions about whether we can afford this initiative or not afford it. So those types of stories, and backed up by numbers, are critical. And the other important part of advocacy like this is to collaborate, to broaden your coalition of folks who are coming to make the pitch, if you will. you may think that, you know, just folks from your agency would be interested in this, but I really urge you to think about working with other people and think outside the box a little bit about who you might collaborate and partner with when you make those arguments. Because if we see a broad coalition of people, we're going to pay more attention to that as well. So when I know that's sort of a subject that works through the workshops today, and think about that as you begin looking at what kind of budget proposals or priorities you might want to discuss with your own legislators and with Ways and Means, beginning really around the 1st of January, because that's when the real work starts, after legislators are sworn in and we begin the next budget. I was asked to maybe share a quick story, an example of good collaboration and that resulted in a piece of legislation. And I see several people in the room, Maddie Ribble is one of them, who collaborated in recent years to establish a Massachusetts Food Policy Council. And we've heard referenced, in fact, a lot of you mentioned in your remarks about the conference that you're interested in food security and hunger issues. And that has been talked about more and more, and a number of people approached me as a legislator and others about establishing a food policy council to have a forum to discuss these issues, as well as all of the other parts of the food system in Massachusetts: preserving farmland, distributing food, dealing with food deserts, dealing with the price of food. So to begin that legislative process, a number of years ago, we pulled together folks from nonprofit organizations, the Department of Public Health and other public agencies, Department of Food and Agriculture, and began brainstorming about what a food policy council could look like and what it could do. And we had some local examples. I know the Springfield Food Policy Council has been around prior to the state one. And actually, Helen, who spoke earlier, is a member of the Massachusetts Food Policy Council and contributes greatly to our meetings now. But that collaboration between many different aspects of our food system is what built enough momentum to finally get this bill passed. It took 2 tries during 2 legislative sessions over 4 years, but it was successful, and the governor signed the legislation. And we've been meeting now for about 2 years, 2.5 years since we were instituted, and we meet quarterly, and we're discussing all the issues that people wanted to have on the table, from food insecurity and hunger to food production. And in fact, we're now embarked on a major effort to come up with a strategic plan for the Massachusetts food system to try to see how sustainable we can be in feeding ourselves and not rely on foods that would not be as nutritious, as healthy, coming from offshore or from the West Coast. And so it's doing great work, and other states have done this. And it really was started as a grassroots effort that got the attention of legislators, and in this case, a very urban legislator and a very rural one. I was the rural one, but now Senator, then Representative Linda Dorsina-Forey from Boston, took up the mantle from the urban perspective, and together we were able to forge that coalition and bring folks in from our own legislative areas and make that bill a reality with a lot of grassroots support from organizations such as those represented here. So that's one example of how our collaboration, I think, should inspire your collaboration as you meet with folks. Another one I'll just mention that's still a work in progress is to reform our zoning and land use laws, which I've been working on for 12 years. If you get the sense that legislatures can be very, very slow and frustrating places, it's true. But it's been an evolving issue that every time we try this, though, we expand the coalition. Just this year, in this session, the Mass Public Health Association joined because they see great value in better land use and livability in communities contributing to public health. And so they're at the table now. Every year we get new partners to collaborate with us and broaden that out. And although we didn't pass the legislation this year, it got further in the legislative process than ever before. And I'm really hoping that it will get over the finish line next year. So I just want to leave you as you go into the workshops with the thought that you should not be shy about approaching your legislators. Again, We're in this business to serve you, to listen to you. Most of the best ideas that I see being discussed in the legislature don't come from us, they come from you. They come from citizens. Our job is to try to turn them into reality. And we can do that if we have good information, the data, the real-life stories, the examples of the impacts on real lives that the policy decisions that we will make will have. So it's that question that was raised earlier about who leads and who decides. I think it's a partnership between those of you out there and every other citizen of the Commonwealth and those of us who are privileged to represent you. Don't be shy about coming to us. Don't be shy about asking questions. And don't be reluctant to advocate very strongly and organize and build those partnerships to make your message much more effective. So I know that's going to be discussed in the workshops. I think you'll get some great information and inspiration, and I hope you will all find new partners to work with, and I hope that this is the first of what will become an annual event. The turnout, the conversations have just been great, and clearly there was a need to bring people together to discuss these issues around the sustainability of our communities and health equity in Western Massachusetts. So I want to commend all of the organizers for this, the sponsors and the huge planning committee. That's probably why it was such a great success today, is so many people were at the table putting this together. I want to congratulate you and thank you for asking me to come and offer a few remarks today. Thanks.